Star Wars. It's a great trilogy that they turned into 9 movies. But the core message is that good triumphs over evil. It takes a long time, like a lot of stuff happens. There's highs and there's lows, there's blips along the way. There are phasers that stop working. Oh no, sorry. Live long and prosper. But it's a story of good triumphing over evil. It's a story that has all kinds of components. Conversions, and we're going to come back to conversion in a minute. Repentance, reconciliation, all of these pieces are part of that story that actually, and I will tell you, the story of Star Wars speaks to a group of people, a part of society that does not necessarily hear our story. They can't hear our story. There's things that get in the way. But because it's known, because it's recognized as fiction, because it's recognized as a story that happens where? In a galaxy far, far away, long time ago. Because that's the way it's presented, people can relate to the story in a way that is different. And now, I don't necessarily understand that, because I think our story is very relatable too. But that's okay. I love the quote that says that all stories are true, and some of them actually happened. There is truth to be found in the Star Wars saga. And all of the side shows and all of that other, like it all kind of comes together and offers us a truth that is echoing a truth that we hear in our own story. So I titled this morning's sermon, Jesus and the Jedi Way. Now you might think that you know what I'm talking about when I say Jedi. You might think that I'm going to pull out my purple lightsaber, or my white lightsaber, or my green. There are a multitude of colors of lightsabers, and I'm slowly learning what each of them means, but that's okay. But Jedi, you will notice, is all capitalized. Jedi, J, justice, E, equity, D, diversity, and I, inclusion. Now, EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, has been taking some pretty major hits these days. There are all kinds of political parties and corporate entities that want to take major step backs on equity, diversity, and inclusion. They see it as being woke. They see it as a leftist agenda. They see it as the LGBTQI community, the black community, the Hispanic community getting their own way. They see it as a purely political, and not only political, but partisan debate. So here's what I'm going to tell you today. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is definitely political. It is not partisan, and it is a gospel way forward. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is what Jesus was all about. Now, equity, so we used to talk about equality, right? We used to talk about equality. Everybody got treated the same. So if I had $100 and there were 100 people standing in front of me, the equality way forward would be to give every person $1. Everybody got the same. Equity is different. Equity challenges us to look at the situations that different people are in and to treat them accordingly, to give them a hand up when they need it. So, if there's a millionaire standing in front of me, giving him $1 isn't going to do anything. If there's a homeless woman sitting beside him, giving her $1 will make a little bit of a change. But equity would say that the millionaire is all good on his own. Let's take that $100 and distribute it according to the need of the people in front of us. That way, everybody is lifted to a certain position. There was a meme actually a while back, a cartoon that sort of had equality. So there was a fence, and there was 3 people of different heights. And if you can imagine, so if this is the fence here, right? So there was a guy who was like 6 feet, and he's like standing up here, and he can see everything. And there's a person who's a little bit shorter, and then a person who's a little bit shorter. Okay. And so then equality sort of gave them all the similar kind of bench, and they could stand on that bench, and everybody was at the same height off the ground, but the really short person still couldn't see over the fence. Equity said that the guy who's 6 feet didn't need a piece of wood or a bench underneath him. He was fine all on his own. The next person had a little bit of a bench, and the person there, the shortest person, had a bench that brought him up to the 6-foot level, so everybody could see. So that's the difference. So equity, the problem, what people are really upset about, is that equity says that if you are coming from a disenfranchised community, so think back a few years. Women who were coming out of, who were unable to be educated, higher education. It was not allowed. So when women started entering the workforce, there were allowances made so that women who were entering the workforce could gain the education that they needed to do the positions that they were applying for. People coming from traditionally poor neighborhoods with lousy education systems are given a hand up to move them forward to a point where they are now on equal footing with someone who's had an Ivy League education, been educated in all the best schools, et cetera, et cetera. The reality is that those who were getting the most help were those who were coming from the most disenfranchised communities. Okay, so let's think about Jesus. Jesus found those who were most marginalized and lifted them up. That's what he did. He didn't give the same gifts to everybody. He actually challenged those who had already been gifted. Think the Pharisees, the scribes, the Sadducees. He challenged them to share their gifts rather than use them as tools and weapons. And he lifted those who had not had the benefit of that education, of that status, of that position. That's what Jesus was all about. Equity was right there on Jesus' agenda. Diversity, well, fishermen, tax collectors, zealots, women, people of color, I'm sure. Well, probably not very many white people, because there weren't very many white people around, except for the Romans. But he even included the Romans. He brought the Romans in too. Diversity, Jesus created as diverse a table as you can imagine. Jesus tried to bring into that circle. And inclusion, same thing. Okay, but now here we are. Jesus' ministry is over. Well, his earthly ministry is over. His physical ministry is over. We're in the book of Acts. And Saul has been pretty brutal in his treatment of the people who are following the way. Those who we would now call Christians. Been pretty brutal. He goes to the chief priests and he gets a piece of paper, or he gets a warrant to go out into the wider community towards Damascus in Syria. And what's he doing? He is arresting people who are following the way and bringing them to justice. But on the way, we hear the story, right? He's blinded. He's struck. He has an encounter with Jesus. An encounter that is life-changing. But he doesn't know it yet. Saul doesn't know what's going to happen yet. All Saul knows is that the one he's been persecuting, Jesus, is a little upset and has blinded him. That's where we are. That's where the story is, right? Jesus blinds Saul, and Saul still goes into town. But he doesn't know what's going to happen. Now, another gentleman, what's his name, Charlie? Ananias has a vision, and he has to go see Saul. But what's Ananias' response when he hears that message? His response is, "What? You want me to go to him? He's been persecuting us. He's been killing us. He's been arresting us. He's come here solely for the purpose of oppressing and harassing us. You want me to go to him?" And Jesus said, or the voice, Jesus, says, that's exactly who you have to go to. Because he's waiting for you. His sight is going to be restored because of you. Now, I think this is really important. Saul has not confessed anything in the story. He hasn't said he's been doing anything wrong. All he's done is heard the voice of Jesus, who has said that I'm the one you're persecuting. He hasn't done anything else about that. He hasn't confessed. He hasn't said he was wrong. He hasn't said anything. He's just gone into town. He hasn't confessed anything. But Ananias comes out of the shadows because he's terrified of Saul. He's terrified of Saul. Ananias comes out of the shadows in the light of Christ and heals him, forgives him. Jesus forgives Saul. No confession, nothing required. Forgiven. Saul then becomes baptized, and he is now Paul. And he goes from a Pharisee of Pharisees who is oppressing and harassing and arresting and killing people in the way, to one who is the greatest proponent, an apostle among apostles. A Pharisee among Pharisees to apostle among apostles. The conversion is complete. And the conversion comes when his sight is restored and he is birthed into the light. He is baptized into the light. And he now moves from this place of oppression and condemnation to liberation and recognition and compassion. He goes from wanting everybody to be the same, good Jews, to one who now espouses the Jesus way, the way of equity and diversity and inclusion, of compassion and of love and of acceptance. EDI is not a partisan political issue. EDI is a gospel imperative. God calls us. God has, since we have known God, God has called us to a life of justice. The prophets, every single prophet has challenged the people who heard them to live a life of justice. And a life of justice meant caring for the orphans and the widows and the sick and the disenfranchised and the marginalized, everybody who was pushed out of the circle. Justice called the people to minister and to care and to be compassionate towards them. From the very beginning, justice was the message of God. And we are reminded, some might say thanks to Star Wars, that justice requires equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's the Mandalorian way. That's the Jedi way. And for us, most importantly, that is the Jesus way. And that is the way that we are called to live our life, to walk our path, to ensure that nobody is lost to the dark side and everybody finds their way into the light. Thanks be to God.